Okay, so we'll do a soft startup on YouTube. So yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening, YouTube, and all your lovely faces. I think it's Wednesday Web Jam number 67. Am I right there? 67. So we've done way over a year together. So yeah, congratulations everybody. It's been my great honor this time to help put this session together with Niels Verhart. Thanks very much for joining us. A community member, one of our community members. Niels is an achieved designer in the materials, it's fashion industry and materials, I think.
Yeah, I've been looking for fashion for a long time.
For a long time, you've got a lot of experience, and you're going to share some of this stuff with us today. And I think it's quite important that we say we're not experts on metaphor. I mean, we all are. We're all using metaphor all of the time. But Niels and I are not language experts in the sense that we're going to teach you what exactly is right or wrong. But Niels is really come up with, I think, a nice session today. I think that you're all going to have fun. And hopefully we're going to learn something. And who knows, be a bit more aware of what metaphors we're using in our language. So that's, for me, pretty much it for now. Enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. Niels, the floor is yours. Enjoy yourself, everybody, and speak to you in an hour.
All right, thank you, Jenny. Thank you all for joining us here in the Web Jam. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about metaphors and how they can help you in your creative work. And I was just flicking through the newspaper. I was on the BBC website and I was noticing all the metaphors that they were using there. So I'm just going to show you a little bit. I'm going to share my screen, my PowerPoint screen, and I'm going to show you a couple of the headlines that I was. Can you all see my presentation? Yeah. All right. So I was going through the BBC website and I saw a couple of headlines that were interesting, use of metaphors. So here is one, I think that was last week. A lot rests on Silverstone. This is obviously a Formula One headline about the upcoming Formula One race in England. And as you can see, it uses the metaphor rests here. Obviously, it doesn't rest literally on Silverstone, but it's used in a metaphorical way to show you how some things are important to the race on Silverstone. Another one also from Formula One is here. And I just have to move you all away a bit. The raw statistics of the past few races look bleak for Mercedes, but there's some light in the clouds. You see it already in one sentence, three metaphors are being used. So the raw statistics, well, statistics are not raw. You can have raw meat, but statistics, they're statistics. And the few races look bleak. Well, I don't know how a race can look bleak physically, but obviously metaphorically, this makes a lot of sense. And it gives you a sense of what the writer means for this. And obviously light in the clouds is also a metaphor that it can become better for Mercedes in this case. Another one is the darkest side of online dating. Now, I'm not sure which side of dating has a bright side and has a dark side, but this is a very physical outing of dating. It's not really dark in the sense of there is no light, but it gives you a sense of dark in that it's a little bit moody, a little bit peculiar, it's a little bit weird and maybe even dangerous, hence this title. This is also one I found. Tinder, the most downloaded dating app in the world, hit 3 billion. I'm not sure if a dating app really can hit 3 billion. Obviously 3 billion means $3 billion. It's also a physical way of expressing something that is more in an emotional way meant. Here's another one. Obviously for COVID, there is a lot of use of metaphors during the COVID period. Boris Johnson's to reveal final step of roadmap plan to restore people's freedoms. And here you can see reveal. Reveal in itself is a metaphor. but also the final step, because here it's not literally meaning that Boris Johnson took one step and that was the final step in this COVID-19 approach. And a roadmap is obviously a metaphor for a plan, but not literally a roadmap like you have the roadmap of the metro system in London. It just means we have an idea, we have a plan, and we have to start somewhere and we have to end somewhere. So this is a little bit what I found in the news. I'm going to do an exercise with you because I also found a weather report on the BBC that I'm going to share with you. And I want you to count the number of metaphors. I want to see if you can see all the metaphors that are in the text. It's a little bit long text. I'm going to read it out loud. You can read along and then give you an extra minute to read it again. And please try to count the metaphors if you can see them. Just going to move this a little away. Looking at the weather in the southeast, we'll be monitoring Elsa, which is now being downgraded to a tropical storm. It has already brought heavy rain into Florida, and as it crosses northern areas over the next few hours, we will see those rainfall totals really mount up and will cause some nasty problems. The heavy rains getting into the Carolinas too, widespread thunderstorms through the Great Lakes pushing into the northeast with temperatures running at around 10 to 12 degrees Celsius above average. And I can't see the final one. I have to put you all up. 10 to 12 degrees Celsius above average. So please take a minute to read this text again and try to count the number of metaphors that are used in this text. And I will be wondering how many you can see there. So if you already have read it, please share either in the chat or just hold out your hands to the camera or write it down on a piece of paper, hold it in front of the camera, and let's see how many metaphors you have counted. I see one hand that says 5. Can you hold up your hands? 7, I see 8. Okay. Well, that's interesting to see. Because when I go, I can go, is everybody ready? I can go to the next slide and I will show you how many there are. And I've counted 14 in total. Well, at least 13, because one, I'm not really sure if it's an actual metaphor. So here you can see, looking at the weather, it's hard to see to look at the weather physically, but in this this example, it's in a studio, so they're not really looking at the weather. So that's one. Monitoring, I find it a little bit hard. If you go into the meaning of the word monitoring, it's a metaphor. But this is a kind of metaphor that's really been embedded in the normal language. So that's one. I'm wondering if it's really a metaphor. Downgraded is also a metaphor. Heavy rain, obviously, rain has a certain weight, but if it's heavy, that's up to debate. Cross is also a metaphor, as it not really literally crosses something, because the weather is floating over the land and not crosses in the same plane as it is in the land. Rainfall totals, that's a combination of different words that uses it's a metaphor. Mount up is a metaphor. Well, nasty problems, there are problems, but can they be really nasty, especially for weather issues? Heavy rains, again, there's one. Widespread thunderstorms. I'm not sure if widespread, if this thunderstorm can be widespread. Pushing into, they're actually not pushed and they cannot run. And above average, that's also a little bit strange because physically it won't be above a certain average, but it's meant as figuratively in the way of numbers work. So that's interesting, right? And from here, I want to move a little bit further to the different kind of metaphors. And there are some levels of metaphorical things. And you already mentioned here, one of those metaphors that we're going to start off with is the metaphor, I see what you mean. And this is a metaphor, and it's called an extinct metaphor. I see what you mean. Obviously, you don't really see what you mean, but you understand what you mean. And this is a metaphor that is so embedded in our normal language that you don't hardly notice it anymore. Another level is a dormant metaphor, and it's a metaphor that's been added to the language, and it's almost become an expression. So this one is, we're getting in over our heads. I think everybody knows that metaphor is being used widely, and it's more of an expression, maybe also a proverb that you use in the normal language. Another one is the active metaphor, and that is a metaphor that's, well, that's crispy and new, and you haven't seen it before, and it's also creative. So it's a metaphor that's original, and those are I think the most interesting. And then there's a fourth category, and that's a conceptual metaphor, and that's the part where we're gonna use and play around a little bit. And a conceptual metaphor is a metaphor that you can use not for just a small detail of something, but for an entire concept, or and has a certain structure. So for instance, a journey as a metaphor you can use for different things. You can use it for your life, for instance. So your life is like a journey, and a journey is a large conceptual metaphor, and aspects of that metaphor you can use back into your life, such as, well, your birth is the start of your journey, obviously, and the end, so your destination of the journey is death, or your funeral, or however you want to call it. And within the journey, you also have these milestones. Maybe you go to college and you have your marriage, etc. These are milestones. And in your journey, you come across, you have to make decisions. So these are the crossroads on your journey, and you have to decide, do I go left? Do I go right? In your life, do I have to take this job or not? Or do I go to a certain school or not? These are all decisions you have to make in your life. So that's more of a conceptual version of that metaphor. Another example is cooking. Cooking is also a nice metaphor. You can apply it to a lot of things, but in this case, you can apply it maybe to copywriting. So you are maybe a copywriter, and you can use the metaphor of cooking to make people understand how hard it is to do copywriting, how many stuff you have to know about copywriting. The same as a cook has to know a lot about all the ingredients, about the technique that he uses, about pans, about if a cook is done with cooking, he has to make up a plate and garnish it. But you can also use that for copywriting. Before you have to go to a printer, you have to think about the cover, you have to think about the layout. All that, those kinds of aspects come together in a conceptual metaphor. And then we go. Let me just check in my presentation and end the show. So those are the different levels of metaphors. Obviously, there are a lot of different metaphors, and I use metaphors pretty widely, because from a linguistic point of view, you have an analogy, you have a simile, you have proverbs, you have anecdotes, you have all these different kinds of techniques that you can use in the language. But for this session, I just use metaphor for all of these, because it's just a way of getting your message across. So you try to find a common ground for yourself and your participant or your listener, if you want to get your ideas across, and find some common ground to where your listener knows the subject, and then you can explain your concept, which is probably, especially in a concept phase, which is probably a little bit vague, and you can make it a little more concrete to him. So I want to go to the first exercise I want to do with you, and I want to go into breakout sessions, and I want to get you going creatively by coming up with a new metaphor for design thinking. I think that would be useful for me personally, but also maybe for the entire community here. I have occasions where I need to explain design thinking to senior management or to a client where he doesn't know what design thinking is, and it would be really handy if you have a nice metaphor to explain it. One of the metaphors that's already being used by design thinkers themselves is design thinking is the glue between all disciplines. So the metaphor of glue, it's sticky, it holds things together. That's an interesting metaphor. Another metaphor could be the spider's web, a spider's web that connects all different departments within a company or different techniques together. And maybe the spider is the service designer that is connecting all these things together and working with all these things. So for now, we're going to go into breakout rooms. I think we're going to have 5 persons per breakout room. And I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about a metaphor for design thinking. So hopefully you will come up with some good stuff that we can all use in our work. That would be great. So Mimp, can we get going?
Yes, I'm about to open the breakout rooms. All opened. Jenny, Niels, Wiebke, please stay in the main room.
Yeah,
Natchke as well, please stay in the main room.
All right.
Yes, they're all going, flying away.
My goodness, I went into silent mode.
Oh, okay. We're really quick in time, and I noticed that I skipped a little bit from my presentation because I didn't show the museum part. So I'm going to do that after this session, and then go back into the second exercise.
Yes, which is nice because I really love the museum idea, and
and it's also it's also a visual part of the presentation.
This was really good.
Yeah. Are we going to do that exercise that you've just given them? Should we do that now?
Yes, we could.
Oh, okay. So we just have to struggle amongst ourselves, do we? Or are you going to facilitate us, Niels?
Well, do you have any metaphors to tell? Do you have any anecdotes?
Design thinking. I don't. But does anybody else here have something that they like to talk about design thinking? When they talk about design thinking, I mean, Niels has discovered that I'm a design thinker in denial. So I haven't actually said it with big letters yet. I'll learn from you.
Well, you are. You're just afraid of telling everybody.
I'm just afraid. I'm afraid to say I'm a design thinker. Hey, but do any of you lot have a metaphor that you like to use?
Design thinking. It's structured play, but is structured play a metaphor already? I'm struggling with your definition because it's so broad and makes me think a lot about the fundamentals of my language, because it's so much broader than I'm thinking like in pictures, but this is just
Neil, it's I only saw
what should I say?
Yeah,
I only saw 2 metaphors in that text. My understanding of metaphor is like really much more concrete and visual than those sentences. Like what was it? Running. There was something running.
Running, yeah. It's not.
And it didn't click to me that was a metaphor. Running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really amazing. If you look at the headlines and you've noticed the metaphors and you start reading newspapers or you listen to people, then you really start noticing, okay, that's not really possible in the real world. It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
They're explaining and they're telling you something, and they're trying to bring you something, an idea across. And it's really helpful if you know how to use them. You already use them because there are a lot of proverbs that you use, and a lot of expressions that you already been using, especially those extinct metaphors. But when it comes to more actively, then you can create something new. It gives you a new creative angle for your project, and it could be really helpful. So I'm really curious to see what they come up with.
And can you guys actually see what you say at the same time?
What do you mean? See?
Like, I was just thinking, for me, it's as if I were pushing or filtering everything I say in here. And in that very moment, I see like filters around my head and my ears and stuff. I basically see them.
Yeah. But that's a nice metaphor, isn't it? Like I see this filter. I can see you with the filter now.
Yeah.
That's a metaphor.
Exactly.
Yes, I know, but I see it at the same time. So it's quite a lot about pictures and images, and yeah, that's what I use quite a lot.
Visualize it's kind of a mind palace that you build up while you are trying to make sense of most of the things that you are speaking, as well as receiving and consuming. So it's like it happens with me most of the times. And just to add on to what Niels had asked to do as an activity for design thinking, I was thinking of design thinking as a reinforced concrete, which has steel rods and cement. If you take both have different properties, and before design thinking, if you see it in concrete or a cement metaphor, both of them had different characteristics. So like the reinforced steel could add and bear the tension that the cement couldn't, and making it stronger. So I see it as a add-on to the existing tools that we had, and adding more strength to the methodology or the frames that we are using right now to build something more meaningful. So
yeah, interesting. Yeah, Mim.
Hi, breakout room, it's 5 minutes already. Do we keep them open, or do you want to close now?
Let's close them now.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
Oh, did you want me to accept that prompt when it came up?
I also have the prompt here.
Are you going to do that, Mim? Is it? Yeah.
Oh.
I got this. Please continue.
So sorry, I was maybe a bit distracted just now, but did you mention the spiderweb metaphor then, Niels, just now?
Yeah, I just shortly mentioned it. Yeah, it could be a metaphor for design thinking. I'm not sure, but I think if you think about it a lot more about spider web, then you can play around with the different aspects of a spider web and put it back into your into design thinking. So everybody's coming back. Great.
Yes.
Oh, that's excellent. So everybody's back. All right. How was it? Can maybe some of you share your metaphor for design thinking? Because I'm curious to hear from you. Anybody? Nobody.
Sure. In room 3, we came up with a bunch of different ones. We kind of so one of them was being in the shoes of a customer, or being in the shoes of the inventor. And then there was a language difference. In Romania, they say being in the skin of the customer, or being in the skin of an inventor. We talked about the compass and using the compass to sort of set our objective.
Nice.
We talked about the human being at the center of a solar system. So those were a few.
Oh, interesting. But what you say, it's correct. There are metaphors, and you have to think about it, especially when you're in in a group with different nationalities, you have to think about the metaphors that could have a different meaning in different nationalities or different languages. For instance, it's more of a proverb, but if you have a needle in a haystack, in English and in Dutch, it's exactly the same. But I can imagine that maybe in Chinese, they don't have that expression or they don't have that metaphor. So you have to think about it depending on your customer or who you're talking to. I saw
like the car Yugo, translated, I think, into Spanish means it doesn't go. So when the company moved Yugo down into South America, it wouldn't sell because the brand was completely different.
Yeah. I think Horia, you wanted to say something?
No, I just wanted to say that in Romanian is the same as in English or in Dutch with the
needle in the haystack.
Yes, and actually, I was part of the room 3, and the thing is that in English we say being in the customer's shoes. In Romanian is being in the customer's skin, or because it's related to feeling at the end of the day. And maybe for me, design thinking, it's more related to design feeling, but that's another. It's a combination. Anyway.
Yeah, interesting.
Thank you. Yeah.
We had some interesting discussions in our room, starting from the scaffolding to an octopus that probably works with different stakeholders on different aspects, but still comes together for a single purpose. We also had some thoughts around the experience of design thinking, the process of design thinking, and connecting it to ripples, and ripples in terms of a divergence and convergence of activities. And then Mark brought in another angle dimension to it, which is if we have multiple divergence and convergence activities, and then you have the ripples going through that, and connecting, and then we were connecting it back to the exploration, the problem exploration and the solution exploration around it, because at some point there is the beauty of the activity, and it is also about bringing it all together at some point, because there is an essence out there. While in some contexts we might think that it doesn't really converge, it has to converge some point, because that's the outcome that we're looking at. But it's not going to stop us from the creative activity of the ripples that it creates, probably within teams and all of it.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's nice. I really like the octopus one. It really brings a nice image to your mind with all the tentacles that each could connect to, I don't know, maybe a different category or a different department or different persons or different aspects of your project. Really interesting.
Susanna had a couple of nice ones from her group as well, by the looks of it.
Okay.
Susanna, do you want to say them?
Yeah, I put them in the chat just in case. So Susanna shared that design thinking is like organizing a wedding for Bridezilla. And Bridezilla is that bride that really wants everything and control of everything, and you really need to understand her needs and meet her where she is in order to go through a great day. My own was, it's design thinking is like a 5-year-old with a relentless passion for why, because you keep breaking down questions and asking why is that, what's happening then, and you're always asking for data and never taking anything for granted.
Yeah.
I have a 6-year-old, so I just passed that phase. And together we came up with design thinking is like Indiana Jones, always ready to explore and ready for the unexpected, because you have your gear, you don't know what challenges you will face, but you will face them anyway bravely, and look for the holy grail, which you might not actually get, because in the end it's about iteration. There's no perfect solution, but it's about the exploration phase.
Yeah, exactly. And Indiana Jones found out there is not really a holy grail, I think, in the movie.
No, and
it's more about the journey.
Exactly. And what I found interesting when we came up with that one, I also thought of, I love MacGyver, but he's actually the opposite of Indiana Jones in this case, because MacGyver will duct tape anything, but with design thinking, we actually try to be really thorough and not build solutions that break down the next day.
Yeah.
So it's the anti-MacGyver. It's another metaphor.
Yeah, but MacGyver you can use maybe in a different situation, because I always tend to say, you know, I have to work with what I have. That's the same like MacGyver. He works with what he has at that moment.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna show you a little bit something else, because we're in this conceptual metaphor mode. I'm gonna share my screen again with you, and I'm gonna go to a project that I've done with Flisco. That's my former employer. I'm gonna show you how we did a little bit there. Can you see? I'm showing you my Photoshop screen. Can you all see it? What we did here is a design exercise using the metaphor for a product page. I'm not sure if you all know Flisco, but Flisco sells these fabrics to West Africa. And within the company, it is said that each fabric is a piece of art. We have Flisco has designers and artists in-house that create these beautiful fabrics. And they really are artists, and they said, well, each piece is a piece of art and it should be treated as such. And then we thought in the design exercise, could we apply that metaphor of art into our web shop or our product page or whatever? So we did a little bit of design exercise. And what we did is, okay, what if we take this art to a higher level and we create maybe a gallery or a museum, and we take that metaphor back to the product page. So what we did is we replaced the page. We just put up a gray wall. We put our fabric up there and we said, okay, we want some, just like in a museum, we put some lighting on it and we put a frame around it. So there you already have a different aspect. And what do you have in a museum? You also have this plaque with information on it. So we also put that there. And all the other information we also going to put up there, but it's, you know, it's more at the bottom. So this was an interesting exercise where we used the metaphor of a museum and applied it directly into a visual way on a product page. And this is something that I think is really interesting creatively if you can do this to any other project that you're working on. So can you create a metaphor for your product or anything that you're working on and have the aspects of the metaphor and put it back into your original product or project or concept or process or company or whatever. And that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to show you one thing else, and that is, can you see this screen? It's a YouTube video that we also did based on this metaphor of museum. And this was an interactive website where you can just go through the different artistic fabrics of the Flisco fabrics.
I only see your Photoshop screen. Is that just me?
Okay, let me, yes.
Same.
Yeah, same.
I think, yeah. I'm just gonna go out. I just shared only one screen. I'm gonna go and share the Chrome screen, and here you are. So can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
So this is an interactive way of, you know, putting our products in a virtual museum and just go through it. And users were able to go through this room endlessly and see all the different fabrics that Flisco sells. So this was also a design exercise in you know, applying the metaphor to our actual business. This is just a YouTube recording, so I'm going to stop this. I'm going to go out here. So that's what we want to do now, is another exercise. And in this exercise, it's similar to the one you just did. But in this exercise, I want you to think about a project that you're working on. It could be a project, it could be a concept, it could be maybe a process, your company, maybe the category of your company. doesn't really matter, but decide in the group, think about it, and create a metaphor for that specific project. And try to think of a metaphor and the aspects of that metaphor which you can use back into your original project. So for instance, if you have a certain project and you have a metaphor for it that is more about, also about a museum, you can think about, how do I, in the metaphorical sense, is there security for in the museum? Can you use the security back into your project somehow? Does that relate to your original project? So does that make sense a little bit? So I think there will be the assignment will be copied in the chat. We're going to go out again in groups of 5 and think about, decide in your group on one project and start thinking of a metaphor that you can use in your business, maybe just to explain it to potential managers or potential buy-in, etc. All right.
How many minutes, Niels?
I think looking at the time, I think you should do 12 minutes. And then we come back here and when we can discuss everything. 10? Oh, I think Wiebke is saying 10. Then we should do 10. No pressure, but you have to do it in 10 minutes.
Open the rooms now.
All right. Good luck.
Hey Niels, well, that's all sorted.
Sorry, I'm sorry, just being rude. Just to...
No, that's fine. That's fine. I was looking. We have about 20 minutes, so 10. That should be fine, and 2 minutes for closing. Yeah.
And there was a question just while that's all running through from Horaya for the link that you showed for the YouTube. So I don't know if we can put it on the LinkedIn later or if we can drop it in the chat later. So
we can put it on the website as well.
True. Yes. But maybe we can put it in the chat when they come back from the breakout rooms.
If you just do it now while we're here, I can drop it later, or Mim can do it if she prefers.
I can drop it now because I
drop it now and then it's done. But of course, they won't be able to see it unless we do it again.
We can do it towards the end.
Right at the end of the show, yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Good.
Why isn't it going?
It was nice because this is what it was, a whole concept with a museum, and I actually didn't get it when you introduced us to that in the dry run. It's just now, it's just perfect. Really nice.
Oh, good. Yeah, I just forgot the museum part, but it explains a lot, and maybe it was better after the first exercise, so that's okay. I think
that was nice. That was just right.
Yeah, and I heard some.
Again, Niels, if you've got it copied, we will have to do that again when they come back from the breakouts, because now they can't.
Oh, they can't see it. Oh, okay.
Well, I will do it. We just agreed we would do it just at the end, because otherwise we're going to interrupt the flow. Or I can do a cut and paste in a minute and reply to when he comes back at Horaya. I'll do that actually. All right, that's done. So when they come back, I'll just drop that in there.
Okay.
Yeah, just do it for everybody.
Yeah, I'll just do it, but I'll do it at Horaya. This is the link for, and then the text that was just done.
Yes.
So that's done. Okay, so what was this exercise then, Neil? Was this
this exercise, what, the second one? Or
yeah, so we need to find a product or a concept between us.
Exactly.
We have to,
Yeah. Do you have any project that you're working on currently? Maybe for a client, or maybe you can think of a metaphor for the Wednesday Web Jam. Maybe you can find something for that.
That's a nice idea. Or if anybody else has got something that they're burning to bring in. Mimp, have you got any projects you're working on, or Nashika?
Sorry, I'm focusing on the breakout rooms, but the one thing I can think of is failing forward. I don't know if that's a metaphor.
Failing forward.
Yeah, that's our motto. Yeah.
It's a kind of motto, but I think Niels is looking for a project or a concept that you would want to design. Because I know you're working on design projects, but
Yvka, what do you think?
Nothing really at the moment. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. I met you.
I thought Nachika might have something because he's got a new job.
Oh yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Fairly new job.
Haven't started off on any project yet, but yeah, I'm equally thinking about different teamwork activities that we do, and collaborating, but nothing specific as a metaphor is coming up yet. But we can take this Wednesday web jam as a theme and work on it probably.
Yeah. How would you describe, maybe metaphorically, your start as in your new job? Are you happy as a child, or?
For me, it's like trekking, going on an adventure. You know where you're heading, but you're also equally excited about the journey. So yeah, for me, it's like an embarking on an adventure.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between a journey and an adventure. In a journey, I think you have a clear idea where you want to go, so you have an end goal.
Yeah.
In an adventure, you don't know where to go. Just like an adventure of the great discoverers of the ages a long time ago, like Columbus. They went on an adventure. They didn't know where to go. They were exploring and discovering as they were going. I think that's an interesting aspect of a new job, that you are starting an adventure. Because when you're looking at it as a journey, already, you're 65 and then you're gonna retire. I'm not sure that's the state of mind you want to enter a new job in.
Wow.
Yeah.
And maybe there's another one that you can find for your role in the team. That's good.
Yeah.
Are you the octopus in your team, or are you the coach? Like a football player, or are you maybe the goalkeeper? Those are soccer related metaphors, really popular in the Netherlands, especially during the last Euro Cup, which we terribly lost in the first round.
It's interesting because how I see it is, while playing football, I've always loved to be a defender, and occasionally take the role of a forward. So I see it in a similar way, trying to understand and observe how things happen initially, and later on take the lead and participate more. So I see it in that way, where it's very subjective, but I'm happy in the mid range, I'll say.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of metaphors you already been using. Defending, mid-range. That's already interesting. I think it's almost hard not to use metaphors. If you skip out all of the metaphors in normal language, it becomes really boring. It becomes static, boring, and yeah, it doesn't leave much to the imaginary part. There's also interesting things about more physically what metaphors doing to your brain also. I think there's a study on it that it says, you normally use your frontal lobe or something, and using metaphors really connects also your creative parts to your more logical parts of the brain. So it gives interaction between logical and, left brain, right brain thinking. It connects those two using metaphors.
Yeah. So
you were asking the breakout rooms to do a certain challenge, Niels. So you wanted them to take a project or a concept, and we're being a bit backwards and coming forwards with our projects here, but we've found one with Nachiket's journey or adventure at work. Do you want to finish the exercise with him and see if you can help him plan his career with using this little game, or is it a bit?
Yeah, so can you explain a little bit more about, you being a defender? Because when you're a defender, can you describe what you are defending, maybe metaphorically or in your actual job? How do you feel about that? And is that something you can use to, I don't know, make your life a little bit better, or your position better, or your work easier or more fun to do?
Yeah. So the other day we were discussing or having a chat about this, and I feel because it's a very initial phase of my journey at the company that I'm working, I see it as an opportunity to observe, understand, and see how the entire game is being played, and then take more leading roles and be more participatory. So in that way, I see it as a defender who can observe the game that's happening in front of him, and then participate. So
Yeah, and when you're talking about defender, do you? Because when I think about defender, I immediately think about the defenders in soccer. You have the people in front, they go charge and they want to try to score, and you have the defenders in the back that are trying to defend the goal, obviously. But I can relate to you because you said you can, from the back, you can observe what's happening in the front and how everyone is behaving, perhaps, and how maybe the company is working, and have a little bit time to observe and get it through your system and understand what it's all about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting in that way. I had one question, like when you mentioned about metaphors. For me, sometimes it is like a second nature. We use it in a system one thinking way, where it's very on an autopilot way. We use it very frequently. Sometimes we don't think so much while we are using a metaphor, and sometimes like if we are asked to think about a metaphor, then it becomes a bit difficult. But while you're using it, you naturally use at certain points in your conversation. So how does the brain work, making the connections, making it so fluid to make connections?
How does it work in the brain? I'm not sure. I think Mimp is we have to end the sessions.
No, we don't have to. She's asking for permission. Just close it.
Okay. You're like,
yeah, just close it.
Do it.
It's in the main main room itself.
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying not to intrude on your conversation. You were doing so well, and then we end up completely interrupting you. And Sarah, we kind of bypassed you. Sorry, so we kind of missed you in there. Sorry. Maybe you had a really interesting product to bring into the conversation.
But from a physical point of view, I'm not sure how metaphors work in your brain. It's like I said, I know their metaphors, connect your left brain to the right brain. I know that it stimulates creative thinking, but as it has already been so embedded in normal language, I'm not sure on that level. Probably not much happens, but if you start using metaphors creatively, I'm sure it will light up your creative part of your brain. But then, I'm not an expert in this, especially not on the brain. So I have to look it up. There's a lot of stuff done research about metaphors. Metaphors are really being used in the area of psychology about treating clients and using metaphors to express their feelings, because normally you use metaphors to express more emotional and intangible stuff, because it's physical, then it's easier. People know, if you don't have to explain a chair, but you have to explain anger, for instance, and you can use metaphors to explain that. So on that level, you have to be creative. But there are also examples in it's everywhere. Also in literature, a lot of metaphors are being used, and in music, you just have to think about Stairway to Heaven from Led Zeppelin is a metaphor. Highway to Hell, anything goes, and those are just the titles. But if you look to the lyrics of music, you'll see that the metaphors also become more of a conceptual item, and they work with that, and they create a whole text out of something intangible. It's really interesting to see. So you're all back together. Wow, we love to hear some of the metaphors you have come up with. So anyone who would like to speak up and tell us about it?
I can share something that we discussed in group 5.
Yeah, please do, Miriam.
I'm setting up talent academies currently for an IT company. And we discussed that the metaphor for that could be redecorating a room. So keeping the outward structure, but leaving some pieces of furniture in, replacing others, and making sure that they match and that they blend together. And then getting support from a designer, which is the trainer, to decide what you keep and what you leave behind. And afterwards, people are in love with their house again and hopefully reinvigorated to use their new skills.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. So you came up with the metaphor of decorating, and you already said, okay, some of the decorating parts, or you need a designer. And who is then or you mentioned the designer is then actually in real life is the trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. Anyone else that's have an interesting metaphor to share?
Hi Niels, Harold here.
Hi.
Well, I was really enthusiastic, so I started, and then we only discussed this topic. But I work as a marketing manager for a telco company to kind of market and also sell IoT, Internet of Things.
Yeah.
Internet of Things is really hard to explain. So if I was at the birthday and I should use a metaphor to explain what it is I'm working with, is, well, imagine that you're a blind man or woman and you are given a glasses where you could actually start seeing the world, which is what Internet of Things actually is. Because we gain data all from all kinds of places, it enables you to see the actual state and also act upon it. So where you did feel kind of blind, you now have the world to see and are able to to act upon it. So this could be a way of people from older age to also start seeing the value of Internet of Things instead of how it works, which is not important.
Interesting. Do you think you will start using that metaphor to explain it to?
I have to sleep over that for a night.
Of course, you have to fine tune it a little bit. And the interesting about these conceptual metaphors, if you start thinking about it, you think of, hey, this little aspects of someone who is blind and given glasses. I can interpret it also in another way, which also can help you with your explanation of your original thoughts. And the longer you think about these conceptual metaphors, just like Miriam was talking about the interior decorating, all these, each furniture could have a function back into your actual real life projects. And the more you think about it, the more the more meaning it gets and the more useful it becomes. And
what you're saying is, if you talk about the project in the metaphor can trigger something that you didn't think before about the project?
Yes, exactly. And that's
I'm kind of doubting it.
Sorry?
I'm doubting that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm not sure because, well, you translate something really difficult and technical to a kind of an image.
Well, it gives you the opportunity to see your project or your problem in a different context. And that context is going to give you new creative ideas that you can take back. Maybe not literally, but you can think about those aspects and project them back to your original project. It's also like we did with the museum part of the website. Physically there's a plaque behind it, but the plaque is says something about the piece of art that's on the wall, and that bit of text is different than you would normally do in a website. And in this way, you can think about, how do I get the essence of the text into that plaque or into that piece of text? And that's something maybe you didn't thought of, if you were just designing a product page on a website. So the use of that metaphor could help you creatively. And that's the interesting part of those metaphors. You can take it back into your own project. Anybody else who come up with an interesting metaphor? We can do maybe one and then we have to close, I think, looking at MIMP. Anybody else?
I just wanted to, if I may, offer a view of how you can use metaphor. So I'm a therapist, but it works in design thinking as well. So let's imagine I dreamt about walking along a long road. A Freudian might ask you, where is it going? Where have you come from? So the metaphor is used in that concept as a journey from to. So where are you, etc. Where are you facing? Very powerful. Like a Gestaltist would say, be the road. What are you made of? How warm are you? What's underneath you? What's above you? So it's just an example of two very different powerful ways of inquiring into what is on the surface, the same metaphor. So that's really powerful and quite simple. You can get books and stuff about it, or just do that. Say, well, look at it. Objectively, what are you? Now subjectively be the metaphor. Really powerful connections.
Yeah, metaphors are really a lot used in psychology, to also in therapy stuff, to express emotional things into more tangible concepts and using these metaphors. All right, I'm gonna look at Jenny and MIMP.
I think we're just going to go a little bit over time, but I'm sure everybody will forgive us. Thanks very much, Niels. It's really interesting.
Just have one more thing to say.
There's no time.
If you want to read up on it, this is an interesting book more about metaphors in daily life. This is about metaphors which you can apply to your normal work, how to use metaphors and make your work more interesting. And this is an interesting book. It has a lot of metaphorical stories, which as a leader or a manager, you can use these and as a reference and talk about it and make your points. So that's it for me.
Neil, could you just show the first book again? I missed that one.
Sorry. This one. I is another.
We'll find a way of sharing these resources with you. Yeah. Mimp's already said in the chat that she'll be putting. Some people have.
Thank you.
Some people have shared some quite interested resources in the chat. So we'll either put them on the LinkedIn feed. Mimp maybe we'll get Anupa to put them on the website, and we'll do something with those books as well, Niels. Yep. So thanks very much. A really action-packed session. I think we knew it was going to be action-packed, so I show your appreciation for Niels. Thank you very much. It was really, I really enjoyed working with you, Niels. It's really been fun. And
well, thank you. Thank you for organizing this and for all the technical stuff for Mimp and Jenny, Wiebke, and Anupa.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was nice having you, Niels. And just for the last couple of minutes, then we're going to take the space away from you, Niels, and give it to Mimp and the next week's session. How do you want to introduce that, Mimp?
I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
We can.
Yes. So as you can see, we have the Wednesday online gallery next week. We will be reflecting on our past jams together as a community in a form of an online gallery. And we will also create something together from the session to add into the gallery itself. If you're wondering how the online gallery will look like and what works will be there, stay tuned and join us.
And is there space for any submissions, or how do people contribute to this, or is it already been curated?
Oh, they could contribute. So contact any of us in the crew members, me, Wiebke, Jenny, Mark, Ezekiel, anyone. And or you can also, we have a LinkedIn group. You can also, drop down something on there if you'd like. And we have a register link that will be in the chat. Is it there? Nachket? Yes? No? Okay.
Yes, it's in the Zoom chat.
Yeah. Yay, lovely. Thank you so much. And that is all from me. Yay.
So I guess 1 minute over time, I guess we can say goodbye to YouTube. Thank you, everybody, and hopefully see you next week. And anybody who wants to join us in backstage, you're welcome to just hang in here for a couple more minutes.